Hi, I'm Sean Keefe. I run sales enablement for Skybox Security. Here's a demonstration video covering zone-to-zone access compliance. Access policies start with the concept of having a source zone and a destination zone, and a policy that describes what kind of traffic should or should not be allowed between the zones. In our example here, we have a zone called external, with no access to a zone called internal servers. In Skybox, when you create these policies, they will show up in both firewall assurance and network assurance. The access policy itself is always identical between them both. How the zone is defined is different. In firewall assurance, only firewalls are used, not the entire network model. Zones are defined by network interfaces. Both zones in the same policy need to exist on the same firewall to be evaluated. This works in flat networks with large multi-interface firewalls where every interface represents a discrete network. This is typically not seen much in recent times, as it's more of an older architecture. Therefore, firewall assurance isn't typically the product you want to specify for access compliance. In network assurance, Layer 3 devices are imported to make a network model. Zones are defined by the networks themselves, not network interfaces. The aggregate access between the networks defined in the zones is evaluated. This allows the zones to be separated by possibly many network devices. This is usually seen in today's current network architectures containing internal segmentation firewalls. Because of this, network assurance is typically the product to specify for access compliance. This is the slide we typically use to describe zone-to-zone access policy. As you can see, it represents using access policies via network assurance, as the zones are being defined using networks, not network interfaces. Notice the zones are separated by several devices in all of the examples. In most cases, when we talk about access policy, we're referring to network assurance's representation of it. Now let's see how this looks in the product itself. Here are the access policy definitions as shown from network assurance. On the left, we can see the two policies that Skybox provides out of the box, PCI and NIST 841. NIST uses 4 zones and defines the policy by describing what access should exist for the intersection of each pair of zones. The PCI policy is defined by the PCI DSS compliance standard. If we look at our list of zones, we can see those 4 zones defined by NIST and the other 5 zones defined by PCI. Marking networks as zones is pretty easy. The best way to do this is go to the Model tab in the lower left-hand corner, and then choose Locations and Networks from the Admin pane. Lastly, we'll choose the Network tabs out of the Data pane. This gives us a list of all of our networks. We can select either a single network or select multiple networks using the Shift or Control click. Then right-click on a selection and choose Mark as Zone. Lastly, choose the zone you wish to add the networks to. Here we can see the definition of the access policy governing the access between the internal zone and the DMZ zone of the NIST 841 policy. We can see a list of ports that aren't allowed, as well as a limit on the number of IP addresses that can be assigned to a non-specified zone. Lastly, we can see another restriction on the number of ports an IP address can be limited to, in this case 10. These restrictions help ensure the least privilege principle is being met, as well as the specifics of the policy. The output is a pie chart showing how compliant the network is with this series of checks. In our example, we can see that the network is only 17% compliant. The non-compliance is being caused by 6 violating rules. Clicking the link to the violating rules at the top will bring us to a list of those rules. These are the rules that would need to be modified to bring the network into compliance with this policy. In Horizon, Skybox's Attack Surface Visualization tool, outputs from compliance engines create IOEs, or indicators of exposure. The output of the zone-to-zone access policy engine combines with Firewall Assurance's rule policy engine to create the Risky Access Rules IOE here in Horizon. In summary, zone-to-zone access policies are a powerful way for Skybox customers to ensure their firewalls are truly enforcing their internal security policies or external compliance regulations. Thank you for watching this video on zone-to-zone access compliance. Please visit our website for additional videos and resources.